How's this? Yes, okay. So we're going to talk about research some more. Stand to your left. Stand to your left. Robin, I may need you to sit in the advanced slides for me. Okay. We're going to talk about research some more because research is such a big focus of what we do, and of course it's how we move things forward for all of you. If any of you are taking medications for chorea, we have 3 approved drugs now, thank someone else who did a clinical trial. So someone else put in all those hours to come in for clinical trial visits and do assessments and get blood draws and cardiograms so that you can take that medication. So thank someone else and think about, is there a clinical trial that you could possibly do at this time that might be right for you? Clicker?
There we go.
I can do a clicker.
I got it.
So again, many reasons to participate in research if it's a good time for you to do this. Some people participate to get access to medications that might turn out to be promising. We don't know at the beginning of the study, of course. That's why we're doing the study. As Lisa mentioned, it gets you to come in more often, which can be a very good thing. We can find out fascinating things at research visits that we don't have time to talk about in clinic, and we can help you. For example, one time I was doing a visit with someone for the Enroll observational study. There was something that came up about managing finances. The person's partner said, well, she doesn't really manage her student loan payments. I'm doing that for her. And I said, you're on disability. Why are you making student loan payments? Let's get those stopped. Why are you doing that? So we find out all kinds of things that we may not have time to get to in clinic. And then, of course, you want to give forward to the future, right? This is a family disease. So we want to do for the future. We want to make sure that there are new things for the future. We want to learn more about HD so that when we have new things to test, we have the best information possible, the best drugs, the best biomarkers.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so there are a couple of observational studies that are available at Georgetown, and there's one that's actually online that anybody can do from anywhere. So I'm going to talk first about my HD story. This is the online one, and then I'll tell you about Enroll HD and HD Clarity. So observational studies, of course, mean a study where there's not a drug intervention or any other kind of exercise or other intervention. These are studies where we collect information from you, and then we use this to develop other studies, perhaps with interventions in the future that may be really useful. So the first one, My HD Story, is completely online. You can do it in the comfort of your home, you can do it in a coffee shop, you can go to a library. And what it does is it creates a profile of how people experience Huntington's disease. And we let you do that in your own words. This is really important because when people use their own words, sometimes we find out that their priorities for symptoms and the way that they talk about symptoms are really different than the way that we think about them as doctors in the clinic, or the way that some expert who sat down and wrote a Huntington's disease rating scale thought about it many years ago, or the way the FDA thinks about it. So we have data coming out from My HD Story. We have about 600 people who signed up already. And from the data that we found so far, we find that people with HD prioritize memory problems and psychiatric problems somewhat higher than they do motor problems. So more people are worried about memory and psychiatric problems than they are about movement problems. Not everyone. Some people prioritize the movement problems. But that's the kind of information we can use to go back to regulators and say, look, memory problems are really important, psychiatric problems are really important, we need to find things to treat those. And that's very helpful when we're in front of regulators to be able to talk about that. Right now, the study is taking a pause. You can go online and register to be part of the next studies. Currently, we have studies only for people who are diagnosed with HD. We do have future plans for people who are at risk, and also people who are caregivers. So that will be coming up in the future. But if you go online right now, you can register, and then they will let you know when something opens up for which you might be eligible. So now Enroll HD, which you've heard a little bit about already, this is a huge observational study that's going on throughout the world. So one of the things about HD as a rare disease is that we have to collaborate. We have no choice. We have to work with people, not only in other parts of the US, but also in other parts of the globe. So Enroll HD is really a global study looking at how people live with HD and what happens to them over time. It's a wonderful study because it is something that everyone can do. So if you're from an HD family, if you're at risk, if you've been tested and you don't have the gene, if you have HD, you can do it. And you can also participate as a caregiver, because it's really important for us to have people who live in the same houses, eat the same food, but don't have HD, so we can compare and see what things are specifically from the HD, what things are just from the environment, perhaps. So really important for us to get people into this study. There's no study drug, and it's sort of a great intro study. So if you've never done research and you're nervous about coming in and doing a study, it's once a year. If you come in and you don't like it, you can stop doing it, obviously. And it's a great way to find out what it's like to come in and do a research visit, very, very low pressure. So again, it's a global study, over 20,000 participants, and we've had over 100,000 visits with these people, so a tremendous amount of data. This is really important for a couple reasons. One is to convince the drug companies that we are out here. So every time you do an Enroll visit, it's like a little pinpoint for the drugs companies on a map. And when they start to see a lot of pinpoints in one area, they say, oh, the Washington, D.C. area has a lot of people at Enroll. We would love to have you as a study site in our next study. So it means that the studies that you hear about in the news that sound really exciting are more likely to come to your area if we have more people who are participating. And again, going back to the regulators, being able to show the regulators what the progression of HD looks like over time. Because when we collect information over time, year after year, we can go to regulators and say, this is how much we expect it will change from this year to this year. This is what a drug would need to do if it was actually going to make an impact for people. So lots of powerful reasons why Enroll HD is a great study, even though you're not taking a drug, you're not taking the risk of side effects from a medication. So HD Clarity. This is a study where you get to have a spinal tap. And I say get to because I know many people are hesitant to have a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture. But it's an incredibly important study. So it's kind of like Enroll, where you come in, we collect data, we ask you questions, but we also do a spinal tap so that we can take a sample of spinal fluid. So this is the fluid that bathes the brain, goes all around in your brain, and we can learn a tremendous amount from spinal fluid. We can learn the level of Huntington protein. We can learn about other factors like brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a fancy thing that helps brain cells to grow and be happy. And we can see how this change over time in HD. So whenever you go on HD Buzz or the HDSA website and you hear about these fantastic studies looking at different biomarkers, a lot of that comes from Clarity, where we can understand over time how things change in the brain because we can do a spinal tap. It's also a great way to see what you think about spinal taps. They're not for everyone. So maybe before you sign up for a drug study that wants you to do a spinal tap, you could try doing it in Clarity and just see how it goes and see if you're up for it or if maybe it's not the thing for you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
I don't think I need this mic. Y'all good? Darn. I have been told many times I'm far too loud for my own good, so apologies if I'm even louder than I need to be. So we have so many options for trials that do involve drugs, so we call them clinical trials at Georgetown right now. There's 5 currently enrolling trials. I'm going to go through each one of them, talk a little bit about what they do and their eligibility criteria, and if you are interested in any of the ones that Dr. Anderson talked about or these trials, more than happy to talk to you at the research booth. And Erin is over here. She's our clinical research manager. She and Mara, who we've also met out there, Mara McCartan, are going to be the ones who are walking you through all of these studies. So you actually get to meet us face-to-face today, which is nice. So I'm going to talk first about Dimension, Surveyor, and GenHD2. These are the 3 we're going to highlight today. So we have 2 studies right now that share the same drug, Dimension and Surveyor. These are first of their kind cognitive drug studies specifically for Huntington's disease. So that's a pretty big deal. It's a symptom that we haven't managed in the past with a specific HD drug. The few that are approved right now are for chorea. So for this drug, it's a once daily pill, and you take it on your own at home. You do have a caregiver or care partner who can help you with this as well if you need it. And then you come and you see us every once in a while. This study is only 4 months long on medication. And so you just come and hang out with us for a little bit. And we do a bunch of cognitive assessments. One thing that's been really cool since I started in HD about 5.5 years ago is the advent of all the technology that we now use. This study uses so many different fun computer programs that can measure just minuscule changes in cognition, as well as activities of daily living like you've heard a lot about today. So we actually get to see from like a quantitative standpoint with studies like this, how things change over time and all the little tiny things that the drugs might be doing. So it's really cool to have a study like this that has so much technology and cognitive assessments and exams. You also get to take little assessments every day on your phone, which are kind of fun. Helps keep, everybody who does like Wordle or Sudoku on their phone, right, trying to keep your brain sharp, this is kind of like that. Every day you get a few assessments to do. So this is one really good option. It also is enrolling adults, so you can be up to 65 years old for this study, and it is for, again, early mild cognitive impairment. Surveyor HD is a sister study of Dimension, so it's the same medication. It works on the same mechanism, once-a-day pill. The cool thing about Surveyor is if you're not quite sure you want to sit in a drug study for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, Surveyor is a month long. So if you don't like hanging out with me, you only have to see me for a month. But another thing Surveyor does that's very unique is it offers the opportunity for what we call healthy volunteers. So folks who do not have a genetic expansion, care partners, family members, they can participate in this study. So we have Enroll HD, which is observational, but this is another option, and this is super rare to have something for care partners to also do. Another cool thing, does anybody remember those driving simulators from high school when you got your license? Yeah, okay, fine, it's not just me. I remember those and nobody knows what I'm talking about at work. We have a driving simulator. It's wild. You actually sit there and it measures how people who don't have HD and people who have HD of a similar criteria, age, academic background, things like that, what that looks like, if there's changes, or how they can actually measure changes in driving function and activities of daily living. There's a fun little virtual reality component. So again, we've got all this cool tech that's happening. And the nice thing about both of these studies too is they will pay you not only to come and hang out with us, they will get you a car service, they will get you a flight, they will get you a hotel, they will do what you need to get done in order to get to us. It's no cost to you out of pocket. This is also pretty relatively new in terms of HD studies. So you get a stipend and you also get transportation benefits. And the idea really is to take away some of the barriers to participating in research. So if you come to your normal clinic visit, maybe every couple of months, once a year, clinical trials, you might be coming every 2 weeks, every month. That can be a lot. That's a lot to get time off work. It's a lot to find transportation. This study is trying to take that burden off. So that's a really nice thing that is newer in clinical research since I started here. Then the next one I want to talk about is Generation HD2. This is by Roche Genentech. Some of you may have heard of the Generation HD1 studies that had happened 2020-ish, 2019 to 2021. This is a new iteration of those studies. It's looking at a different population, so a slightly younger population, and looking at an earlier stage of the disease. So normally we see clinical trials where you do have to be affected by HD. You're going to have some kind of symptom. Generation HD2 is very interesting in that they are looking for folks that really have not had a lot of symptoms at this point. We call it prodromal or very early stage. That's also extremely unique in research. And this is a population of folks that have been overlooked in terms of research. So if we can start looking at research for younger populations, for populations that haven't had as much of disease progression, we might be able to learn even more about how then we can stop the progression earlier, we can slow it, or what else we need to do to help folks that already have progressed a little bit further. With Generation HD1, it did shut down early, and it was not found to necessarily be the most helpful, so that's another thing we learn with research. Not everything is a golden ticket, right? So the reason we're doing this again, though, is that they're trying to see if this drug really does what it says it's doing, and we know that that's the case. It lowers Huntington protein. Can that help people still? So this is one thing that's so important to keep doing with research. Even if a drug doesn't work initially, we learn so much from the data that we collect. And from all of you that have participated or are thinking of participating, we can't do this without you. And we can't find ways to move past where we're at these standstills unless we keep trying. So we need people to keep trying, keep trusting with us. We don't do these studies if we don't think they're safe, but we do need to keep learning about these diseases. So we have many studies that you all have heard about. We have 3 approved drugs at this point. We just need to keep going with this and keep looking for different solutions for this. And hopefully we will, but again, we can't do it without all of you. There's a few ongoing trials at Georgetown. There's the Connect HD2 trial, which how many of y'all have heard about valbenazine, the latest approved medication? That's Connect HD2. That's Erin Koppel right there was our coordinator for that, our research manager. So we actually got to work on the most recently approved medication. So things are working, things are looking up, but again, we can't do this unless you all help us out and participate in research. We also have the Proof HD study, which is currently ongoing and will be winding down. That's something they're still doing data analysis for. So stay tuned. We can always talk to you a little bit more individually if you want to know more about that, but both of these studies have active publications on things like HD Buzz that are really great to look at. They're written in a nice, non-super medical terminology way so that everybody can understand the results. So those are ongoing, so stay tuned for those. We also have an upcoming trial that we hope will start soon called Pivot HD. This is also a pill study, and this one's super fun because you get a lumbar puncture, like HD Clarity. You get MRIs, which are also super fun. I just recently had one. It's not a big deal. You're fine. And an ophthalmological exam. So it's looking at all different spaces of HD. And so this is a potentially disease-modifying study as well. Stay tuned. Hopefully we'll find out soon when this will be starting up at Georgetown. And that's all we have right now for our clinical research update. Does anybody have any questions?